You know what advice I really don't like? Don't come to me with a problem, come with a solution. Hi, I'm Dr. Leanne Davey, and while that advice is okay if you're talking specifically about going to your manager, then I think it is good to come with a solution, not a problem. I think coming with a solution and not a problem is the start of so many conflicts on teams. Here's why. If you're coming to your team with a potential solution, it's probably not to something in your own area because you could have just fixed that yourself. You're likely coming with a solution to something that cuts across areas or even sits completely in one of your colleagues' remits. And when you do that, it can trigger a whole bunch of unhealthy reactions. The first is just that, wow, that was a dumb idea, because you probably don't know enough about how things work. Maybe the reaction you get is, oh yeah, that would be awesome if it weren't explicitly prohibited in our contract. Then you're just going to look ignorant, and that's not very helpful. Another thing you can do by suggesting a solution when you haven't even talked about the problem is make somebody really defensive. You can take them off guard. If they didn't know there was a problem in their shop and all of a sudden you're jumping straight to a solution, there might be lots of pushback and resistance and defensiveness, and you don't want that. Of course, a third possibility is it might be a perfectly good solution, but essentially what you're saying is, I didn't really have the confidence in you to identify or solve this problem on your own, so I'm going to jump in and, be God's gift to this team. Well, that condescension is really not going to help with your relationships with your peers. So instead of coming with a solution, it makes a lot more sense to come to your team with what the issue is and a few tips for that. So come saying, I'm starting to notice. So something that says this is bubbling, this is brewing, this is coming. Part 2, come with evidence, not just I feel like, but so I asked around, or I took a look at the data, or I've compiled a few things. Coming with the evidence that something might be brewing is much more constructive and going to make it a lot harder for people to ignore the point. And then you can shift to a question. So, what do you think this can be attributed to? What might be causing this? What actually might be another explanation? And so there's not a concern. If you help to get your team aligned on what the problem is, and then the person who is accountable for solving the problem is much more likely to jump in and say, okay, thanks, I'm on it, I've got it, I'll come back to the team with what we're going to do. But that way you haven't put yourself out there with some harebrained answer that doesn't actually work on the ground. You haven't surprised somebody and made them defensive about an issue on their own turf that they hadn't noticed. And you haven't sort of condescended that they aren't capable of coming up with their own solution. So no more coming to your team just with a solution. Instead, come with some evidence and some ideas about what might be problems that they need to solve. Okay, that's it for me. I'm Dr. Leanne Davey, here to help you get the team that you deserve.